Hi there, Wilf Johnston with you with another of our market updates. We're here today with Wilf Johnston from SunPower. Sorry, pardon me, that's a fair bit of history. Wilf, tell me, where are you working these days?
Well, today I'm with Enphase, previously with SunPower, so you got that right.
Yeah, and in between that, you're working for a solar retailer, right?
For Energy Matters, that's correct, yeah.
That's cool. Now, look, we're going to run through a bit of a market update here for you, and then get back to Wilf on some of his experience there with running solar retailer, which can help us understand what companies might want to do given the downturn in Victoria. So on screen at the moment, I have got showing you the volume of installations by month. And what we can see is that in April 2019, yes, there was a significant downturn from the record high of the month before. Interestingly, of course, it was still a top 5 month despite the downturn. And then I've actually gone out and said, oh, of course, ANZAC Day and Easter, affected these volumes as they typically do in Aprils. And I've pulled out the April of the previous years, and you can see that despite the significant downturn, we're still 50% ahead of the year before. So this growth is just happening and happening and happening. Now, the major news recently has been the Victorian rebate has been reduced, and so we can actually see here that this hasn't yet affected installations. Victoria's registered installations, yes, they fell, but they fell back to the same market share as the rest of the market. So essentially, Victoria had 26% market share in March and had 26% market share in April. So it dipped in line with the market. New South Wales held up better. It actually took some market share away from South Australia. Now, looking at that chart, though, you can actually see the installation volume growing significantly as a result of that Victorian rebate. Now, I started to think, okay, well, PV Cell's a fantastic tool for analysing the quote volumes that are going through the market. And what I can see here is what you can see here is the quote volume with reference to that first starting point of 12 weeks ago, and how that's varied. And noting, of course, there's ups and downs. What you can see has happened is that 3 weeks ago, basically, it fell significantly. Now, other states there, which are in the duller colours, yes, they also dipped through that holiday period, but they've recovered strongly. They dipped later and they recovered strongly, whereas Victoria has really languished there. Looking back further in time, we're showing the weekly volume of quotes put through PV Cell for Victorian residential installations, and you can see how that basically doubled way back in August, September, and held a fairly consistent volume, except for, of course, the Christmas break. And then has come back to levels which are actually lower than they were back in August, quite significantly lower. So this is definitely having an impact upon the market. While we're here, we can also do some interesting things with PV Cell to identify what are the most popular panels that have been putting through our software. And so there's an interesting view there for people who are curious to know what the different market share are. And then we can actually even break that market share down into market segments and plot its trends. So you can start to see some product substitution in different markets as panels become available, different price, etc. So this is a service which we're interested in having chats with manufacturers and wholesalers, service that we can provide as a partnership approach and model. So I'd like you to come and chat to us about that. But coming back to this chart here, it's clear to me and from conversations that there's companies out there that are really hurting in Victoria. They really have scaled up their operations to take advantage of the rebate, and as a result, may not have a huge amount of money in the bank to withstand the downturn. Wilf, you've been involved in retail operations before. I'm presuming you've seen something like this happen before. What do you do in these circumstances?
Thanks, Warwick. I think there's a lot of different elements to what happens when a rebate like this gets introduced. When you think about the fundamental demand in the market, for an end customer, for solar from an end customer, it's still a very good value proposition. So what happened when this rebate got introduced is, on one hand, you had some new people that came into the market that, you know, mightn't have been able to buy at the previous prices, but with a discount of a couple of $1,000s, were able to now get involved. So when I know Solar Victoria has acknowledged that. But I think some marketing people I've been speaking to felt that it was a lot of it driven by awareness. So just the fact that the rebate was out there was more advertising, the mass marketing companies out to make a quick buck were in doing their thing, as we know, and just generally raising awareness around solar being available. So what we're seeing now is a lack of awareness amongst end customers. They're not getting hammered as much about buying solar as they were before. They may have been in the market at either price, you know, the old price, the new price, and now the old price again, but they're just not being reminded as much about it. So being very present with the marketing again and is absolutely fundamental to sort of staying rolling. Obviously, some companies are lucky enough to have, you know, 6 or 8 weeks worth of pipeline in there, which will be of some use to them to get them through the winter, as it were, for the next little bit. But then the other thing, of course, is just to look and see, well, who never qualified for the rebate in the first place? So you've got houses, you know, households with a higher net income, which, you know, are still in the market with or without the rebate. They could never get it. And then you've also got the upgrades, right? So there's still a significant amount of systems out there that are significantly underpowered, especially when it comes to taking advantage of battery storage. And they all need, they're all upsell possibilities, both with batteries and just more solar. They're obviously a lower priority when you've got low-hanging fruits of rebate business around. But with that gone, there's no reason why not to relaunch some of those upgrade programs and go back to old marketing databases.
Yeah, sounds like a good suggestion. Also, from my conversations with Solar Victoria, there's plenty of applications that went in that are incomplete. And so for solar companies that have involved with incomplete applications, it's a good time to go back to those customers and get them to complete their applications because they you know, have already met that cutoff date and can help get you through. So a couple of good suggestions there,
Right.
Wilf. Thanks for that. Now, you've recently stepped into a job at Enphase. You know, tell us, what are you doing these days, and what are you about to bring to the market that you think will change games?
Yeah, well, look, when we're not talking to Victorian solar retailers that are trying to solve the crossword puzzle of dealing with rebate changes, I think what we're fundamentally trying to do here is you know, making sure that there's good knowledge of the new series of microinverters that are out there, so the IQ7 product, but also preparing and doing beta tests and so forth for the new Ensemble platform that we have, and that's the grid agnostic platform, which is all around enabling a house to continue to have solar energy available to it, even when the grid is down and even when you may not have a battery. So a very high reactive system that is able to keep a household stable and with electricity. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And then we're also looking at additional storage products that we'll bring to market sometime next year. For now, we have a smaller storage product, which is really focused on those customers that don't have a lot of excess solar energy after their consumption's been taken out. And that we found from our research is still a significant amount of customers. So we're really pleased to be talking to customers around that product. And then we'll have a larger product out to the market sometime next year.
Well, look, I think when the Victorian government does come back and reintroduce bring out the battery rebate, I think that's targeted at retrofits, right? So it's handy having a product that's retrofittable, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, cool. Out of curiosity, with your grid agnostic product, and great term there, what happens when there's not enough sun to power the whole house? You know, or it goes from a situation where, you know, you were powering the whole house and then the sun goes behind the cloud. Does everything switch off, or how do you handle that? It sounds really complex.
Yeah, it is. But look, I mean, obviously the physics of the situation means if there's not enough sunlight, then you know you're going to have a lack of electricity. So there's a couple of different ways we can do it. I mean, there's obviously a shedding process that can go on with certain loads where you can cut those off as we go down. But it's really just around how smoothly you manage that transition and that process. It's an extreme example, but in a lot of cases it would be perfectly sufficient for houses that want some form of electricity when they don't have the grid around.
Oh, mate, I remember moving into my new street and they were upgrading the wires there, and there was like just days and days and days where there was no power during the day. So exactly when you'd need that product if you didn't have a battery.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's storage has a role if you really need that 24/7 capacity. But we think that Ensemble's a great way of kind of blending those different scenarios of a lot of storage, medium amount of storage, or even no storage at all. The system will just handle it and adapt and keep everything steady.
Fantastic. Well, look, sounds fascinating. Keep up the good work. I look forward to seeing that when it comes out. I know you've been quiet on when that will be, but it's been great having you here today. Thanks for chatting and sharing some of your insight. And if other people in Victoria are feeling the pinch, there's a couple of good tips there for you too.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Warwick.
Bye.